Before I introduce the moderator, you know, I was kind of thinking about, entrepreneurship and real estate. And really, I mean, if you really think about it, realtors, real estate developers, we're kind of on the front line of entrepreneurship, right? I mean, a lot of people, consider, you can consider, buying your first investment property entrepreneurship, right? You can consider helping a business get a location entrepreneurship. So really, the relationship between real estate and entrepreneurship is almost one and the same. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce the next moderator. The next panel is about Brownsville, and the following one is about commercial real estate in Cameron County. But for this one, our moderator is Trey Mendez. He is a former mayor. He is also an entrepreneur. He has a restaurant in downtown Brownsville, one of the first restaurants that popped on the scene and is still thriving to this day. But during the day, he's also a lawyer. And so I asked him to come moderate the panel. I don't think there's anyone better that can do this panel. So with that, I'll hand the mic over to Trey.
Thank you. And thank you, Ramiro. And Ramiro's been one of my closest, dearest friends for a long time. And we actually co-own the Coca-Cola building together. So if y'all haven't been down there, I know we're having some events down there on Friday. So if you haven't been down there, check it out. Go see some of the businesses that we have downstairs, female-owned businesses. It's a really great environment at the Coca-Cola building and a really good story about redevelopment and resilience. So really excited to be moderating the panel today. We've got some great speakers. This is specifically about Brownsville and Brownsville real estate. We've got some really amazing panelists that are going to give you some insight on what we've seen, the trends we've seen, the growth and development we've seen over the past several years, and tell you their story. So I want to just let the panelists, we'll go one by one, and I just want them to introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about themselves, and then let the audience know right now, what is it about Brownsville that gets you most excited?
Yeah, hi. First of all, thanks for allowing me to come on the panel. I'm Brad Frisbee with Rhodes Enterprises. We're a land development and residential home builder in 21 active communities right now in South Texas and as well as in Laredo. Really high on Brownsville, heavily invested in Brownsville. We've got one community that's going right now, and we've got a few others that are coming down the pipe, but super excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Trey. Bruno Zavaleta with Zavaleta Realty. I'm also here representing the Brownsville Board of Realtors. I'm the president of the board. Been in real estate about 15 years. Originally from Brownsville, left for 16 years. Thought I was never coming back, and I ate my word 16 years later. Mostly residential, but I do dabble in commercial for the last, 10 years or so, commercial leasing or commercial sales. So I'm excited to be here. As far as Brownsville, I guess growth, right? I mean, when I left, nobody really came back because what was the reason to come back? So now that you see it, I think that growth for Brownsville's been good.
All right, thanks, Trey. My name is Jason Wolf. I'm with Sable Market Center. I do property management, and moved back to Brownsville about 10 years ago, and decided to work on this really great project. I think what excites me about Brownsville right now is utilizing both the cultural aspect that we have here, the really vibrant culture that we have here, and being able to show that to companies that are looking to come into Brownsville. I think that's something that makes us really unique in this area of Texas. So.
I am Araceli Gonzalez. I am here representing Kid Create Studio. I am originally from Brownsville, born and raised. I was gone for 16 years, recently moved back about a year and a half ago. And so it's been really nice to rediscover the city where I was born and raised. And one of the things, well, there's a lot of really exciting things happening in Brownsville, but probably my favorite part is seeing people in my generation, younger people, really stepping up into leadership roles and becoming really a lot more active in the community, knowing that they have a place at the table. And with all of the growth and change that is happening, I just think it's a really exciting time for all of us.
Thank you. And it's really, really kind of cool to hear, I know Brad's not from here, but I think that the people that tend, and I've always said this, the people that tend to appreciate Brownsville the most are two types of people. The first is somebody who isn't from here and comes here and tells us how great everything is, and sometimes we don't see it. It takes sometimes people from the outside to tell us how wonderful this community is, or to tell us all the great things about this community. And then we've got the last three panelists who actually left and came back. And I think the people that leave see other things, see the world, kind of see other cultures, see other things, see how the world revolves, and then come back, tend to appreciate it more too. So it's really great to hear those stories. So Brad, we'll start with you. With roads development, I know that your first kind of entry into the Brownsville market has been the development by the sports park. So can you tell us a little bit about that, about maybe some of the risk factors involved at the beginning, how the development has gone, and maybe some of your impressions about that?
Yeah, so Palo Alto Groves, we kicked off some years back. It was a little bit before my time, but we're going into phase 3 in horizontal construction right now. But I know that it kicked off gangbusters sales-wise, and we had a hard time keeping up. Some delays in planning and getting some plats recorded kind of kicked us a little bit in the tail, but we caught up. I think that community, we specialize in master plan communities. So we use a land planner in Minnesota. Everything is designed around common areas, parks, trails, curvy streets. If you've driven around Palo Alto Groves, it's a signature of all of our communities. So we think we have an attractive product and community that the home buyers are looking for. That's very walkable and just thoughtfully designed. And so it's been a hit for us.
Great to hear, and it's always good to hear about the market trends and kind of see where it's going. And we've seen the market over the last several years really increase. So Bruno, we can talk about the real estate market itself. I have the Brownsville housing report, so I kind of take a look at this on a monthly basis. And for y'all that don't know, the Board of Realtors puts out a monthly kind of graphic that talks about several key areas. One of them is the median home price. The other one is active listings, whether they're going up or down, closed sales, transactions, how many properties are actually selling, and then how many months of inventory we have. So right now we've seen the median price of homes go up, and I'm talking about 2019 forward. We've seen some of the trends through COVID and other stuff, but active listings I know are up. We're kind of seeing the closings kind of go down a little bit, but can you give the audience a little bit of a perspective on the current buyer or tenant trends that we're seeing across both residential and commercial real estate in Brownsville?
Yeah, so our residential, our median prices now, I think we're about 256, 259, somewhere in there. And I guess the easiest way sometimes I talk about price is I use an example, because especially during COVID and then we had SpaceX and then we have LNG, a home that was 2,400 square foot I would sell for $275, brand new construction, right? Now that same home is $420,000. I mean, so that's just the easiest example that I can tell you is like that's what we're seeing price-wise. From a residential standpoint, rental-wise, same thing. You used to be able to rent, a little 2-bedroom for $800-900, and now you're about $1,200-1,300, which is, Trey and I were talking a little bit earlier. I mean, it's caused a little bit of an issue trying to find homes for people. Interest rates are not helping. I think that's been the biggest blow for us, right, as a whole. I will say from a trend standpoint, what I found interesting in the last 6 months, I've sold 2 homes for SpaceX employees that had bought in Brownsville, and then they moved out to Starbase. So then that kind of starts me wondering, going, okay, well, are they going to come to us, or are they going to start moving out there, right? But then there's still the ones that, no, I don't want to live out there, and I want to, my family wants to be in Brownsville. But I did find that interesting because they had bought in Brownsville, then they sold in Brownsville, and they moved out there. So we'll see where that goes with them.
And just kind of as a follow-up on that, whenever we kind of see economic impacts throughout different sectors of our economy, we kind of tend to see that there's always kind of a hot pocket, like in luxury goods, right? Even during recessions, people are still buying Ferraris. But do you see that the higher end of the real estate market maybe is still strong? Do you see that, or what are you seeing in the higher end of the real estate market?
I mean, I definitely think it's slowing down on the higher end of the market. Like I worked with one builder specifically who's kind of slowed down and said, kind of hold off, let me feel it out. Let me just put one or two instead of having 4 homes built. And then the upper end of the market, I mean, some of those, the doctors or those business owners, I mean, they're doing custom homes, but that's not really the market for Brownsville, right? I mean, ours is still that. I mean, if I can sell anything, I always joke, I mean, give me a house under $200,000 and I'll sell it all day long, right? And then the higher I go in price, the harder it is for me to go. And I've got a new construction right now that I've told my builder. I said, look, he goes, what are you doing? I said, I've tried everything. I said, that's just the market. And I think the next question, I guess we can talk about kind of what's happening, because it's just the trend is definitely slowing down, but it's still there, right? I mean, last year was my second best year in 15 years, which surprised me because I started off slow. But like Cynthia and I mean, we're kind of the veterans, right? So our names are out there. It's everybody got into real estate thinking, oh, this is easy. And then they realize this isn't easy. It's hard. And you got to work. And you got to be able to help them and educate them.
Thanks. Jason, so tell us a little bit about the history behind Sable. I mean, we knew it historically. For those that grew up in Brownsville, as North Park Plaza. We all probably can still tell you what the movie theater there looked like and stuff, but and then its evolution from movies to dollar movies, and then unfortunately, being vacant for a long time. But tell us the history behind the Sable market and why the redevelopment means so much to our community.
Yeah. So the Sable Market Center was formerly North Park Plaza, built in 1974. And for many, many years, it was had really great businesses there. Experienced its real prime during the 80s, 90s, with the movie theaters and the different restaurants. And something that we started to do was, when I moved back about 10 years ago, we saw a real opportunity to kind of start cultivating or kind of like incubating some really great tenants at Sable Market Center, and redevelop the whole shopping center, mainly because it's on the frontage road, highway facing, and we realized that it was the face of the city essentially as you drive in. And what's been really interesting is we started to work with a lot of mom and pop shops and local businesses, and so as the years have gone by, we've been able to get some really great tenants, really unique stores, all mostly local, which was really cool, really nice to work with. And then as SpaceX has come in, what we've seen is all those employees that are out there are looking for goods and services that they would normally find in a big city, and so because we've kind of curated a really great mix of tenants, it's really helped out now that boom came in with SpaceX, to be able to provide really unique services, hot yoga, vegan keto bakery, juice bars, coffee shops. And so it's worked out really well. It was something that we started 10 years ago, kind of seeing the future, not knowing anything about SpaceX at that time. And it's really interesting what Bruno had said about people moving out to Starbase. Though I think that, from a real estate perspective, from a residential real estate perspective, you might see employees be moving out to Starbase, but what Starbase necessarily won't be able to provide is that kind of real culture aspect, the community aspect that Brownsville has. And I think that hopefully they will end up wanting more of a work-life balance for their families. And so that's where Sable Market Center comes in, to be able to provide that.
So I talked earlier about the movie theater, which we all have some fond memories of. And I know that when I was elected a few years ago in 2019, I remember I saw some redevelopment plans. that y'all had, and it was really exciting because I mean that piece of property is just beautiful. It's prime.
Thank you, thank you.
And you know, it's always been kind of right along the expressway. It is something that people look at and kind of think, okay, this is a good area. It's ripe for redevelopment. You're doing that now, but you kind of always kept one part of that kind of back for yourself because you had a really good idea, and I was like, man, this would be awesome.
Sure.
And that's one thing that I think really gets us excited about the redevelopment. So tell us about what you're working on and kind of where that idea came from and what you hope it's going to be.
Yeah, so for the past 10 years, been working in commercial real estate, property management, but my real background is in the music industry, and so when I moved back, I got my degree in music business with a concentration in live entertainment. Worked in the live music industry in Chicago for several years, and that was really exciting. But what I really wasn't getting from living in Chicago was obviously being back home, and I wanted to find kind of a balance of being at home, being with my family, but also working in the music industry, which obviously we don't necessarily have that down here. And so when I looked at the movie theater that had been vacant since '96, something like that, provided a real opportunity and started to look at it a little bit differently. And so what we've decided is that I'll be opening up a concert venue in the old movie theater. So it's called the La Vivo Music Hall, and we'll be looking to book touring artists from all around the world, really giving a platform to local musicians as well. And so it's really exciting. It's something that there's not really a market for the music industry down here. As many of you might know, the Valley has been able to pump out some really, really great talent, specifically Grupo Frontera, Erga Barrera. And so anyway, so looking to give Brownsville a really great platform for music, and then of course provide all those SpaceX employees that are used to living in big cities and used to going to concerts, used to that live entertainment aspect of outside of work, and so that's what we're looking to open up there.
A lot of people are excited about that, so look forward to that.
Thank you.
Araceli, I know that moving back to Brownsville, starting your business, and trying to find a spot for that was kind of a unique experience for you. I understand that you had kind of a hard time, or it took you a long time to find the right space for your business. Can you tell us about what that experience was like? Maybe what some of the challenges were, and then your story about finding the right place for your business.
Absolutely. So Kid Create is a national franchise, and so I have a background in international marketing and economics. So every fiber of me was saying, a franchise, this is the worst thing you can do. What are you talking about? And I warmed up to the idea. I'll get into that later. But I was put in a unique position being a franchise. I have a franchise agreement, and there are certain things that I need to fulfill that my franchisor requests. I cannot just say, oh, I like that place and it would be good for our art studio. No. The franchise has done a lot of research into what works, what locations are prime, what we need to fulfill for our brand. And there was a point where the franchisor kept saying, we're going to move your territory to McAllen. And being from Brownsville, I put on my boxing gloves and I said, no, we are staying in Brownsville. We couldn't find a place that would fulfill the requirements that the franchisor wanted. And the franchisor actually had a real estate broker that they worked with. I was still living in Monterrey when I started looking for a space. And it got to the point where the real estate broker, it's not someone local, was making up listings. I sat through a meeting where they told me that it was the HEB by Alton Glore. And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? And I think the message that they got that I was in Monterrey, I think they didn't understand that I was from Brownsville. So I think they were just trying to meet whatever, that they had done their work. So I go back to the franchisor and I say, I can't work with them. They said, you signed an agreement. I didn't sign an agreement. They forgot to send me an agreement. So I say, you know what? I'm not working with you. You're not local. I think their nearest agent was in McAllen, and they just didn't want to drive down to Brownsville. And being from Brownsville, I think some of us can agree that sometimes other parts of the valley tend to look at Brownsville, we don't want to really waste our time there. And I experienced a little bit of that, and I was still in Monterrey, and I actually called Louis, whom I know from my entire life, I think. And I said, look, Louis, I have this issue. I'm trying to work with someone who knows the area and who isn't going to be feeding me. And the other thing that was happening was they were telling me, well, this is all that's on the MLS, and that's all that's all that's available. So you either need to move into a 3,000 square foot space. No, the art studio doesn't need 3,000 square feet, because that's what's available on the MLS. And working with somebody local is the absolute difference, because you know the landlords, you know the developers, you know everyone. And I think Brownsville is still kind of in that situation where maybe local landlords don't necessarily want to list their properties online, and it turns a little bit into this relationship. And so Louis was great at helping us, but I would go back to the franchisor and say, look, I have these locations, go take pictures, and then the franchisor would say, no, we need to look for something more than this. And it was this constant struggle. And to make a long story short, I called Louis up one day and I said, I feel like I'm wasting your time. You probably have bigger deals to chase. And I'm just gonna stay mobile. We're currently a mobile art studio. And that worked for a while. And the franchisor comes knocking again and says, you have a franchise agreement, and by this date, you need to have a location. So they finally were a little bit flexible in what their needs, and we ended up going to Palm Village. We're hoping to open by the end of the summer. But it was really interesting. My experience with real estate had been mostly residential. My family has real estate, and correct me if I'm wrong, residential tends to be a little bit more emotional. It's, people, yes.
It's definitely touchy-feely, and commercial is black and white. It's the numbers make sense or they don't make sense.
And so I now know that it's a very different type of transaction. And there's some great landlords in Brownsville. There are great things that are happening, but one of the factors that affected us was that we needed something that was ready to go, somewhere where we could, we tried to work out one deal, and then I think the place got bought out by a different developer. That fell through, the terms changed, and it was over a year of like these back and forth between the franchisor and local landlords, and then some that were just not willing to really do anything. But we finally found a home. And we will continue being mobile, but it'll be nice to have our own space.
So just to follow up on that, how important was it for you? I mean, hearing that the franchise itself and the people that on the other side of the franchise were kind of out of touch with the community, how important was it for you to work with somebody local?
It was incredibly important because the franchise doesn't understand Brownsville, and now they call us like the anomaly because we have 5 locations in Texas, and I think Brownsville has been the one that has taken the longest time to find a location. There's territories that have signed after me that are already open, and it was finding a location. So having somebody local was instrumental to finding a place.
If I can chime in real quick, it's kind of, I just closed, I have a friend of mine from high school that bought into a franchise, same thing, they wanted her to work with someone out of San Antonio, and clueless, was pointless, like this is all I can find, this is all I can do. She's like, but I've got this realtor. I mean, it was definitely a challenge, and we ended up buying an off-market. I just knew of a doctor's office that potentially would want to sell in the future, and we worked something out, and that's how we ended up getting her a space. But yeah, they kind of want you to work with these agents, but you kind of need the local realtors. I mean, it's what we know. So.
And And then they want a referral. They're like, well, talk to whoever you're working with because, maybe I can just be your cheerleader. Those were the words. I can be your cheerleader, and maybe I can get, just ask them if they would be okay with a referral fee. I'm like, you're not doing the work. Why would you get a referral commission?
Yeah, some of these national brokers, they think, well, I've got the CoStar database at my fingertips or LoopNet, so I know that everything that's there, or I've seen the MLS. It's just not the case. It's about 50% of the listings that are.
And where you're going to eventually move, Palm Village, and that we're seeing a beautiful redevelopment there, just like what's happening at Sable. Property, prime real estate that was ripe for redevelopment, getting redeveloped. That gets me really excited. And then Palm Village, for the longest time, was another one where it's like, this is prime for redevelopment. This is in the middle of everything. It's a big area. They could do so much more with this property. We're seeing it now redevelop, thanks to Rodrigo, who's a sponsor of some of the stuff that's happening today, so sponsor plug. But can you tell us maybe a little bit about ultimately what made you want to decide to be there? Did it have to do with the redevelopment and some of the other tenants that are going to be around you?
Absolutely. Number one was community. The other thing are just things that make sense. So we're a kids' art studio. We start with kids from 18 months all the way into the teen years. And I don't know how many of you in here are parents or have little ones. If you have 2 screaming toddlers in your car, you're not going to drive very far from where you're going to where you need to be. So location, just thinking as a parent, okay, well, I probably need to go to HEB, just little things that parents tend to do on the daily. I'm not going to go out of my way to take my kids to a class or drop them off at a class. If I need to drive 30 minutes, I drop one off, I have my screaming toddler maybe in the back. So that location, Palm Village, is great because we're close to the HEB, close to restaurants where, and we'll have a couple of restaurants, is my understanding, inside of Palm Village where, hey, maybe, or I can catch a workout class. I believe there's going to be a gym. I can catch a workout class. Well, my kid is at art class. I can go catch a workout. Maybe we can have dinner there together. So really planning that community around the things that families do was just a great. And I think Sable is also like that, and we were back and forth between either of them. I personally really like Sable, but the timing wasn't right. I did come see Jason too. So that's one of the reasons why we went to Palm Village, and what's happening at Palm Village and the businesses that they're attracting is just, I mean, the co-tenancy is great, and it's something that we don't get at a lot of retail centers here in Brownsville. I'm starting to see a trend, I believe. That transformation is starting to happen at other places, but we're really limited when it comes to that.
And that's a good segue because the Palm Village redevelopment, it's local, and it's been local investment that's made that happen. And that's a good segue also for Jason. Origo also is a partner now at Sable. We've seen that redevelopment, and the one great thing about North Park is it always felt like a community because you always had a really unique mix of local businesses and kind of a different vibe than other places. And I think some of that had to do with y'all and your family really knowing some of these people and really being able to build that community. But can you tell us how exactly that came about? I mean, how were you able to get such a great mix of local businesses down there, even before the redevelopment?
Yeah, so yes, one we've partnered with Origo Works. They've been really great partners. They're helping us with the construction management. Their brokerage services have been helping us to find really great tenants and continuing to work on finding tenants. 10 years ago, we kind of took a leap of faith as far as signing tenants that were different than what are normally in the market. I think we really started with Breathe Hot Studio, which was it's a hot yoga studio for those of you that don't know. And it was kind of a trickle effect as far as one business wanting to be next to the other. And because my background isn't in real estate, it was obviously a real learning curve and a real learning opportunity to really see the value in tenant mix. And so what I always say is that the way that we got our little community of tenants was by saying no, and the power of no, and saying no to be able to stick to a vision, right? If we had a vision for what the shopping center could be, not just taking the first thing that walks through the door, and so. So that's how we really started, and obviously we've been very fortunate to be able to find some really cool, really different tenants, and then that has translated to having national interest. That's one of the big hurdles that we're looking at now is filling the big box. We have 54,000 square feet of a big box. We have real estate trends, commercial real estate trends as far as retail and restaurants. Obviously, not going into big spaces like that anymore. So it's given us a challenge, but it's really given us an opportunity to see what kind of interest we can get. So in about 2 weeks, I'll be in Vegas meeting with some really great prospective tenants. Obviously, leaving the cliffhanger of, that we are getting some really, really cool tenants or really cool companies that are wanting to be tenants. And so we'll wait and see.
And is there still space available?
There is still space available, yeah.
Okay.
Until we get signed contracts, then space is available, So.
All right. And Bruno, we've seen some of the industry around Brownsville grow. We know about SpaceX. When I started as mayor, it was probably a couple hundred employees. They grew to a couple thousand as I was leaving office. And then we saw the LNG industry and Bechtel, and that really grow out. And I know that we're going to have probably several thousand employees there, at least starting off. But how has growing industry in Brownsville affected the real estate market? Are you selling houses to individuals that are coming for this industry, or what are you seeing as far as some of the larger companies that have moved here lately?
Yeah, so for the most part, SpaceX employees, they do normally buy, but there are some that do want to rent first. So the families are, let me just kind of see what's going on. Let me get a feel for the schools. SpaceX has their own schools as well. So they're kind of you just really don't know what you're going to get, right? Some will buy, some will rent. Bechtel for the LNG, that's been pretty big on the rental market for us. They've really pushed our rentals. I've sold one home to an employee. Hopefully, we were just talking to someone from Bechtel. Hopefully, at some point, they'll, if they figure out they're going to be here for a little bit longer, then some of those renters will turn into homeowners. So we'll see where that goes. But it's been our biggest driver. I mean, right? COVID, and then 2021 when Elon put the tweet out. Our phones rang off the hooks. Property that we couldn't sell for the life of us, we're selling just like that, right? I always joke about I had an investor drive down and slept in his car because it was COVID, and he didn't want to stay in a hotel, and ended up buying 3 or 4 properties, right? So, and they're still investing in Brownsville. They still believe in Brownsville. They still believe in SpaceX, and then, like I said, the LNG is definitely helping us as well.
Have you seen that there's a lack of multifamily? Because I do tend to see that some of the individuals maybe that are coming for SpaceX, at least initially, need a place to live, need to rent a place. LNG employees also need a place, maybe temporarily. But are you seeing that there's a lack in multifamily? Because it seems like there is. And if there is, how has that affected the price of rentals? I know you touched on the pricing earlier, but is that due, you think, to the fact that there isn't enough multifamily, or just the economy itself?
No, definitely multifamily is still being pushed. I just did an off-market sale for the Methodist Church off of Boca Chica. We ended up selling about 4 acres of their land off the market to some developers that are going to be putting some apartments in there. And the discussions that I have with them is well, what price point? What are they looking for? And I say, look, anything on the lower end, 1,000, 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms, $1,200 max. Kind of that's what there's still a need for. Because in the homes, it's kind of hard to find that. So there's definitely still a need for multifamily, and you'll see it. You drive around and you're starting to see these different apartment complexes, or a lot more townhomes, so there's.
Have you heard anything about the local residents as far as affordability? Has anybody complained to you about, hey man, I can't afford to rent anywhere?
Yeah, definitely. I've had to turn people away. Anyone looking to rent, under $1,100, $1,200, I pretty much say go try an apartment complex. Because apartments, they won't work with us as realtors. But yeah, you can't. They're having trouble finding that lower income rent, especially if they're single. They don't need a big house. They just I just need a little place to live. Airbnbs are also kind of becoming a big thing, right? I mean, you're seeing a lot of those that come down. They're renting the Airbnbs, and then they'll stay there for a couple months, and then they figure out, okay, what am I going to do?
Yeah, I was surprised at how big a presence Airbnb actually has in Brownsville. And it's kind of like, I never would have thought that Airbnb would have had such a huge presence, and then I never would have thought that there'd be Ubers in Brownsville either for a while there. But now it seems like it's just a common thing. So Brad, when I was in office, we approved the Zavaleta development, which is a huge master plan community. I know that the Palo Alto Groves has shown that there is a use case certainly for master plan communities, and I think master plan communities are great because they provide that quality of life, some of those amenities, and different, sometimes different design and better design. And I hear that y'all are working on a new master plan development in Brownsville. Can you tell us about that and maybe some of the specifics as far as how big a property, what are the plans for that, and where do you see that going?
I definitely think there's an appetite. A couple of years ago, we looked at Brownsville like, hey, we really want to be here. A lot of stuff going on. I think there's a lack of buildable lots on the ground right now that is impacting, some of the supply. The demand is there. We feel it's there. So a couple of years ago, we looked, where do we want to be? We targeted an area between Old Alice and Paredes Line Road on 511, and it was off market, so nothing was listed. Mostly out-of-state landowners that were landlocked, couldn't even get to their property. And part of that was the Tenasca land, which was roughly 200 acres, somewhere around in there. So went after that, started negotiating with them, and then when those chips fell, we ended up getting the rest of all the dominoes just ended up falling into place. Like I said, most of those owners were out-of-state, never even touched foot on their properties before. So we got it all under contract a couple of years ago. We're in the late design stages of the development. It's called Estrella. It was nice to see it highlighted at the State of the City address. But it's going to be our Tres Lagos version of Brownsville with a little different flair. Tres Lagos is a 2,500 acre development in North McAllen, heavily amenitized. It's going to be the same thing. It's going to have resort style clubhouse, pool, over 250 acres of just parks and common area, cascading lakes that are going to be going through there. It'll have all of our product segments, entry level, move up, second move up, our townhome style, conventional apartments, rental homes, about 100,000 square feet of commercial. I'm trying to think what else. All the bells and whistles. When
a company like yours is looking to make such a huge investment, and this is probably close to $1 billion development, I would think. What do you look at, and what are you? Is there maybe a void in the market? Is there some sort of demographic data or economic data that you're looking at that says, hey, you know what, we need to pull the trigger on this investment. It's something that we think is going to work. Because, historically, we didn't see master plan communities for the longest time. Now we've seen, coming on 3 in the last 5 or 6 years. So what is it that you see from your side of this that makes you want to make such a big investment?
Well, we typically rely on data and permit data specifically, but there was kind of an anomaly in Brownsville. A lot of, announcements on business, SpaceX, LNG, all the things that have been mentioned today, but the permits weren't really supporting it. So kind of went with our gut in Brownsville and just based on the other data, as I mentioned with the jobs, said we don't think it's because of the housing market is not flat or anything like that. It's really, truly lack of buildable lots on the ground. So we just dove in and wanted to be here. And in 5 years, we'll be doing just as much here as we do in McAllen.
We don't use the M word around here. We don't use the McAllen word around here. But no, I think Brownsville's really closed a gap on that, and I think it's been a great few years to see all the growth and development on the residential side and the commercial side. I thank all of y'all for what you're doing. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and just open it up to the audience for any sort of questions for our panelists.
Do you need the mic?
Thank you for being here, first of all. Appreciate your presence here, your information. But with all this development and being from Brownsville, what's the update on the urbanization within the Cameron County? Thank you.
What's the update on what?
On the urbanization, the traffic.
I don't know if any. What's the urbanization for Cameron County? So the transportation-wise, what is the panel seeing? What are the needs that they're seeing?
The needs are facing.
Okay. Yeah. So what are the needs that you think Brownsville and Cameron County are facing from a transportation perspective?
I mean, I don't know whether it's something that affects necessarily real estate. Bruno, if anybody has a perspective, maybe you would, or maybe Brad, as far as connectivity or how connectivity plays into real estate. Maybe for a master plan community, I could see maybe it being walkable or certain things like that, but I'm not sure.
I think walkability is definitely a big one, right? I'm glad to see now that the city, we experienced it with the board, is if you're starting to do any development or to your property, they're making you put the sidewalks in. So that's kind of a nice plus. So now we're going to have these little segments of sidewalks, but at least we're kind of getting there. Traffic-wise, I guess it's kind of, I used to joke I was about a 7-minute commute everywhere. Now it's maybe about a 10-minute commute everywhere. So it's not too bad. You guys are opening up off of 511, which is, you're definitely seeing a lot of SpaceX people liking that part of town because they can take that. And then now you've got the expansion that I guess TxDOT's looking at doing out towards by Indiana, right? Boca Chica and all that area, and as well as 511. So I think, all that will definitely help flow some traffic. That's, I guess, what I've been sensing and seeing.
So I'll follow up, Bruno, just so, I know the East Loop has been a conversation around town for 30 years. Just in your thoughts, what do you think the impact of the East Loop, when it comes from a real estate perspective, what do you think the impact will be?
I'll be honest, I haven't really given it a whole lot of thought. Because it doesn't really, it's at this point, it's, for my standpoint, is what house can I find for my buyer, right? And so they're just kind of take whatever they can get. And I know, from something we didn't really touch, but as far as growth, all of Brownsville used to grow north, right? When I first came back, everything was kind of going north, Alton Glore and all that. Boca Chica was dying, and all of a sudden now everybody wants to be close that way, but there's not much that way, right? I grew up on Cowan Terrace, which we were talking earlier. That was, you're way out there back in the days. But definitely you're starting to see that growth, and then, what they're doing at 511, that little shopping center, the gas station, and hotels. So we'll see.
I think your question will be better answered by the next panel. So, any other questions?
To touch on a little bit on urbanization, it was an interesting question that kind of sparked something. I think in commercial real estate, the trends that we've seen across the board around the country is this idea of mixed-use developments, and that was something that we always considered when we were looking at Sable Market Center, was whether we should build apartments on top of it or build hotels around it. And I think that Brownsville's starting to do that. There's a lot of commercial real estate developments that are popping up, and then you'll see a hotel pop up around it, apartment buildings, and so that kind of plays into connectivity and making sure that people have access. But that is something that the general commercial real estate industry sees around the country, and it's nice to see that Brownsville's picking up on it and is kind of playing with it, is making sure that people have a place to live. And listening to the panel before with multifamily developments, people are also starting to look for townhomes, where they prefer to be close to restaurants, they prefer to be close to shops than they are maybe on the East Loop, kind of out with more land. So it's something that Sale Market Center definitely looked at, and because we also realized that people were spending more time, even though we have kind of our Brownsville has been known as a lower income community compared to the rest of the country. The consumers are still, or the population of Brownsville is still spending a lot of money on going to restaurants and entertainment. And so that's something that we picked up on, and that's why we obviously opening up the concert venue is because people were wanting to spend more money on entertainment and food. So so Brownsville's definitely picking up on it, absolutely.
Araceli, I have a question towards with your business. You know, schools are very important to people. I know you and I talk, and there's a whole thing about like homeschooling, and there's the conversation about education in children is really kind of changing, and is changing rapidly with what's happening at the state level. Do you get a lot of calls about trying to bring children to your business? That's one. The second question would be, how do you think the changes in the education sphere will that impact your type of business? I'm thinking, like, I don't see a lot of Sylvans. I don't see a lot of educational businesses that I see in other cities in Brownsville. Do you think there will be more based upon the changes? Sorry for that long question.
No, you're fine. I think to best answer your question, you would need a totally different panel up here, but I'll do the best I can. So it's a really interesting time for education right now. As far as the art studio, prior to the pandemic, every year the arts funding was being cut and cut and cut and cut, and then on the other hand, we have a lot of money being poured into coding and artificial intelligence, and everyone needs to be, we want our kids to be really proficient in learning these new technologies. And as parents, sometimes we don't sit and think that, lineal thinking, there's no way that we're ever going to beat AI. But there are things that we can do for our children to really hone that creativity. There are things that we can do for our children at an early development stage. And that's where the business opportunity comes in for a lot of, for my sector, for example. And my hope is that, yes, we can bring in more programs, more businesses that cater to really developing children from a very early age. Not just heavily on the STEM side, but we also need that A. We need the STEAM, right? We need the arts in there. And as far as, I do get a lot of calls, which is why it was really important to get a brick and mortar studio. I do get a lot of calls from homeschool groups. I do get calls from schools in regards to what do they call them? In-school field trip where they will have us come out and do an art lesson and talk about art education, not art. But the way to do it, and it's something that makes Kid Create unique, is that first of all, I mean, we need to have insurance, right? Things happen, especially when you're dealing with little ones, and it's not to knock my competitors, but before anything else, I'm a mom, right? And I want to make sure that if I'm dropping off my child is going to be safe with that person. So it's not enough to just have a simple background check. You went down to the police station, you don't have any criminal record. We do in-depth background checks for our employees, and they don't just happen when you hire. They're happening consistently. My hope is that we do have we create a child-centered community, because that's one of the signs of a very healthy society. If we're catering to our little ones and really giving them the tools they need to succeed later on in life, they're going to pick up on the science, technology, engineering, mathematics, no doubt. But if we're not giving them that opportunity for social skills, if we're not giving them that opportunity to really develop their creativity, if we're not developing their emotional intelligence, then there's really, I mean, it's a disservice to them. They may be able to do wonderful things with artificial intelligence, and they can maybe code these very complex apps, but if we don't have that if we're not developing them socially, which is a little bit of what we do, then we're kind of in trouble as a society. And I mean, kids are our future, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, I want to thank our panelists, and it was a really educational panel. I think we're all really excited and long on Brownsville for sure. We see the opportunities. It's been a great several years. We see a lot of growth and development in our city. It's an exciting time, and happy to have everybody be a part of that. So thank you all very much for being here today.